Okay, good vach. We're on Ches Amid Beis. We're on Ches Amid Beis. So just to bring you back a little bit, we've been discussing, and we will continue to discuss this. Right? You see the chart? We have a chart of psukim. The chart is good. Okay. So we finish with Ser Pinim Shal Yom Kippur. In other words, the inner Yom Kippur, everyone is Maida. It's going to be Mechape for Yediyah B'tchila, and you didn't have a Yediyah B'tsof on Tumas Mikdash Shukadashav. So we know the Tumah, it's Tumas Mikdash Shukadashav, and you had a Yediyah initially, you had Alama, Kam Yom Kippur, you didn't know that you did an Aveira, it's going to protect you. And then if you find out afterwards, you'll bring what in Oila V'yorin. Okay, we said the Sir Bachutz, the Sir that's outside, that is, in other words, that's Bor Yom Kippur. It's mechaper on, you don't have a yediyah, according to Rabbi Yehuda, again, we only show the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda so far. It's mechaper if you don't have a yediyah in the beginning, but you do have a yediyah in the end. You do have, right? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and focus on this part right now. On Rabbi Yehuda's shita, and yediyah betchila, but you have a yediyah in the end. Good? You have a yediyah in the beginning, you have a yediyah in the end. So we're beginning with from the two dots on Ches Amid Beis, a few lines up, okay? A few lines up. Says the Gemara. Ein ben yediyah betchil v'yesh ba yediyah b'soif, seir hanase b'chutz v'yom kippur mechaper. The seir that is born in Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur itself will be mechaper. Again, it'll be mechaper, and we'll see what's the din if you have to bring a carbon later on. Michti, iskushe ishkish lahadadi. We know that we have a hekesh between the panimi and the chitzoni, the one that's done inside and the one that's on outside. So unechape panimi adidei, let the panimi be mechape for yesh yediyah b'tchila ve'en yediyah b'sof. Excuse me, yesh yediyah betchila ve'ena yediyah besof, and be mechaper on that chitzon, which is you don't have a yediyah in the beginning, right, and you do have a yediyah one in the end. We have a hekesh between the two. You just told me that ein yediyah betchila but yesh yediyah besof. The seir that's done inside is yediyah beginning and side. Again, yediyah betchila b'soif throughout, guys, that you have the oil of yared for. Here you didn't know. So guys, look at the chart. Look at these two cases. The Gemara's kasha is let the seir panimi be mechaper for this both. In other words, sa yediyah in the beginning and not in the end, and sa no yediyah in the beginning and yesh yediyah in the end. That's the Gemara's kasha. Let it be mechaper for both. So once you have a hekesh between the two, let's be mechaper for both. When mechaper pnimi adidei ad chitzayin, v'nafkamina, what would the difference be? Lahechad da'avid chitzayin. Let's say the prices of seirim went up, and you have a problem. You don't have enough of them. So I'll kill two birds with one stone. The ser that's done inside will be mechaper for yediyah in the beginning and no yediyah in the end, and also no yediyah in the beginning, but yesh yediyah in the end. So, in other words, why are we separating? Why don't we just dump a few chatayim on one carbon? Once you make the hekesh, let's go ahead and say, now, why would we do that? After all, what do you gain? And the answer is, let's say seirim are at they're a luxury. They're not too many to be had, and therefore, if I bring one, it'll be mechaper for both, and I won't have to bring the seir bachutz, So that would be the nafkamina. So Amakra, the following pasuk. Okay, this we. You see a pasuk? Okay. V'chiper Aaron al karnoisav achas bashana This is speaking about the Mizbeach Hazav, fellas. This is speaking about the golden Mizbeach inside. Amon B'I Mechaper, Achas Bashana, once a year, Midam Chatas HaKippurim, from the dam of the Chatas of Yom Kippur, Achas Bashana Yichaper Olav L'Daresechem. Okay? So, fellas, there's two times it says Achas Bashana. It says Achas Bashana, and then it says Achas Bashana. What is each one teaching me? So our question is, let this korban that's brought once a year be mechaper for what? For two things. Guys, it says what? It's only mechaper for one thing. It's only mechaper for one thing. Right? It's only mechaper for one thing. What's the one thing? What's the one thing, fellas? Yesh yediyah b'tchila ve'en yediyah b'soif. And not only that, it's the only one that's mechaper. It's, in other words, there are two things, fellas, that you're learning from this pasuk. Guys, look at the pasuk because I want to take it off the board. The chiparan al karnois of achas bashana, once a year, meaning one kapara, not two kaparas. The question is, let it be mechaper for two things. It's only mechaper for one thing. And then it says achas bashana, and this kapara happens once a year. It doesn't happen more than once. Okay? So therefore, with that in mind, let's begin. Again, our question is, let the dam, let the chatas that's done inside in the panim be mechaper for two things. For yediyah in the beginning and not in the end, or not in the beginning and yes in the end. Okay? Says the Gemara. Let it be amakra achas. Achas kapara achas mechaper, vein mechaper shtei kaparos. It can only do one and not two. Okay? Spread the Gemara the opposite then way. V'nechaper chitzoin adidei v'amay da'ovid penimi. Let the outside one now be mechaper for no yediyah in the beginning, yesh yediyah in the end, and yesh yediyah beginning and no yediyah in the end. No, it's the reverse kasha, guys. It's the inverse. Let the chitzoin be mechaper for those two things. Again, it's mechaper for no yediyah in the beginning, yesh yediyah in the end. Let it be mechaper for what? Yesh yediyah in the beginning and no yediyah in the end, which is the chatas penimius. So the Gemara says, and mavdin afkamina be l'tumah de'ira bein zelazeh. Any tumah that transpired between the panimi and the chitzain. Okay, so let it be mechaper for that. In other words, the Gemara is asking, my practical nafkamina. You're bringing on the same day, you're bringing a panim and you're bringing a chitzain. So the chitzain should be mechaper for both. But one second, why does there be mechaper for? You already brought the panimi, and the answer is any tumah that would have transpired between the panimi and the, in other words, you don't have to wait till next year. You won't have to wait till next year. Okay, says the Gemara, Amakra achas bashana. Kapara zu loitehei. This kapara should only be ela achas bashana. Okay, outside, guys. Eye contact. The Gemara, we're playing with this variable. We're playing with the variable of this chart, right? We know this and we know this. This is the given that the seir is mechaper yedi in the beginning, no yedi in the end. Seir is mechaper no yedi in the beginning, yesh yedi in the end. Frag the Gemara, let this be mechaper for both. My nafkamina. Let's say you don't have enough seirim, so you bring this one, you won't bring this one. Says the Gemara. It says achas. It says what? Achas bashana. This can only afford one kapara. It can't afford two kaparas. So that takes care of that question. Second question, let this be mechaper for this. Let the chutz that you should be mechaper for both. Nafkamina, after you bring this one, any tumah that transpires between this one and this one will be mechaper for. Says the Gemara, achas bashana. This kapara that this one got only takes place once a year. So therefore, the seir b'chutz cannot be mechaper for you have a yedi in the beginning and the end, because that takes place only once a year. So it's only mechaper for one aveira, and that kapara takes place once a year. Since it takes place once a year, it can't go ahead and use that chutz for the pnim. How does that make sense? Okay, good. Baruch Hashem. Tesam and Aleph. Ula Rabbi Yishmael da'amar, and Rabbi Yishmael is of the opinion. Ein bo yediyah b'tchila, b'yesh bo yediyah b'soif. Bar korban hu, He's of the opinion you're being an oil of a yored if you don't have a yediyah in the beginning, but you do have a yediyah in the end. So what are you doing with the ser nasa b'chutz? So this carbon, fellas, I keep on going back to this chart because I think it enlightens for you. This carbon of en yediyah b'tchila el b'sof, Reb Yishmael on Daf Yotes is of the opinion this carbon will bring an oil of yored. So what does this carbon do, guys? Like Rabbi Shmuel, what is this carbon doing? Since you're going to bring an oil of yored if you have a yediyah in the end, even though you don't have a yediyah in the beginning. He argues on our whole point about what? That you have to have a yediyah in the beginning to bring a carbon. But he says no. He says, Rabbi Shmuel damar ein ba yediyah betchila. If you didn't have a yediyah, you were a tinek shenishbar, v'yesh ba yediyah b'soif, and then you wised up. Bar carbon who you're going to be an oil of yored, seir and asa b'chutz, am I mechaper? What's the mechaper on, guys? What's the mechaper on? Yes. On that, Gemara answers, Al she'ein ba yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'soif. You don't have the yediyah at all. Okay, now let's take a look on our chart. Says the Regalim, Ein ba yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'soif. Ein ba yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'soif. So Gemara answers the Gemara the following, guys. What does, look at the chart. What does Rabbi Shmuel do with this one? He uses for this. He uses ser b'chutz for ein ba yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'soif, right? Question is, I have a carbon for that. I have the carbon Regalim for that. I even have the carbon Rosh Chodesh for that. Ein ba yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'soif. So why do I need the carbon of on Yom Kippur b'chutz? Why do I need that for? I have the Regalim and Rosh Chodesh where there's no yediyah at all. Read the Gemara Kasha. Hi Siri Regalim b'Siri Rosh Chodesh mechaprim. Savala Reb Meir d'Amar kol ha'seirim kaparos and shavin al tumas mikdash kadashav. Okay, so good. Meaning, we met Reb Meir in the chart, guys. What does Reb Meir hold? Here he is, the last column. Reb Meir holds, and the last three things, they're all equal. This, whether it's this, and this, they're all equal, right? They're all equal. So since Rabbi Yishmael holds they're all equal, he'll say that this is not mechaper. This is not mechaper for, on this case, he's going to hold ein yediyah b'tchila yesh. He's going to hold ein yediyah b'tchila l'b'soif. You're going to go ahead, ein yediyah b'tchila, but you do have in the beginning. He's going to hold in this case. You're going to go ahead what? Yesh yediyah b'soif, yesh yediyah, ein yediyah b'tchila yesh b'soif. He's going to say in this case you're bringing oil of yored. And I Regalim, he holds like Reb Meir. He holds like Reb Meir. He holds like Reb Meir that what? That this can be mechaper for what? If you're going to be an oil of yored over here, this can be mechaper ein yediyah b'tchila v'yesh yediyah b'soif. Okay, one more time. It's a little jargon. We have down pat the kasha. We're on New Gemara. Rabbi Shmuel's opinion, guys. This sayer brings an oil of yored. So if this thing is bringing an oil of yored, why do you need a car? What's ein yediyah b'tchila v'yesh yediyah b'soif? You're going to bring an oil of yored. So what is Regalim for? It's ein ba yediyah loy b'tchila v'loy b'soif. Good. For the Gemara, that I have the Regalim for. So why do I need the chutz for? So he says, he holds like Reb Meir. He holds that this carbon will be mechaper for everything. This carbon will be mechaper, and in the case of ein yediyah loy b'tchila loy b'soif, it's going to be mechaper for that. So therefore, since he holds that, it can be mechaper for it. That's the question. Now, the question is, what does he do with the hekesh? We make a hekesh between this and this. Over here, Rabbi Shmuel is of the opinion that you're not going to bring an oil of yored over here. So what does he do? What does he do with the hekesh? As I read the Gemara right now, what does the Gemara do with that hekesh? Right? What does the Gemara do with that hekesh? Read the Gemara kasha. So you're telling me he holds like Reb Meir, right? You're telling me Rabbi Shmuel holds like Reb Meir. Well, if that's the case, okay, and all the Gemara's are shavin, and therefore the seir that the seir that you bring outside and the seir Regalim, Rosh Chodesh, they're all equal. Ella, the according to Rabbi Shmuel, l'may hilchasa ishkes chitzon lepnimi. There's no hekesh between what the one that's done inside on Yom Kippur and the one that's done outside on Yom Kippur, because he holds it's oil of yored. Maseh b'nimi ein mechaper b'shara veiros. Afchitzin ein mechaper b'shara veiros. So in other words, it's only going to be limited to Tumas Mikdash Ukadasha. He's going to go ahead and learn the Hekesh, only limited to Tumas Mikdash Ukadasha, not any other Aveira. So we know the Seir of Yom Kippur, guys, is Mechaper. You might think it's Mechaper for other Kapparis. We're going to see that it's the Seir Mishtaleach that's Mechaper for that. So therefore, it's Mechaper for what? For only Tumas Mikdash Ukadasha and not Shara Averis. Amr Yehuda Shmuel. My time of the Rabbi Yehuda says the Amoira Rabbi Yehuda name is Shmuel. What's the reason of the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda? Now, what does that mean? My time Rabbi Yehuda that what? Rashi says the Amar Kol ha'acherim mechapim al she'em bo yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'sayf chutz mishal Yom Kippur. So what is Rabbi Yehuda's Shita? Begolim v'shchoitish the mechape ein bo yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'sayf. Okay, so in other words. Seir Pnim, this he learned out Achas Bashana. He learned Achas Bashana, you get this for, and we figured out the other day it has to be speaking where what there was Yedi in the beginning, not Yedi in the end. Okay? And now the Regolim and Resh Chodesh, he learns there's no Yedi at all. So the Gemara wants my timer, this is Rabbi Yehuda Shita, my timer of Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason that Rabbi Yehuda holds that what? That it's that Seir Resh Chodesh is Mechaper. Okay, says the Gemara. My time Rabbi Yehuda that the Sir Reish Chodesh is mechaper on something that there's no yedi in the beginning, no yedi in the end. Amakra, the pasuk says, v'ser izim echad l'chatas laHashem. Now every pasuk in the parsha, guys, every pasuk there in the parsha, Pinchas says you're being a seir as a chatas. By Reish Chodesh it adds one word, fellas. That word is laHashem. It adds that one word. It is the word chatas laHashem. That one word. It adds that one word chatas laHashem. Do I have that over here? No. Okay. So why does it say the word laHashem? Why does it say the word laHashem? Chet she'ein makeh by ela Hashem. The chait that only Hashem would recognize, Yehei Seir Zeh Mechaper. So guys, what's Rosh Chodesh Mechaper? Look at me. There's no Yediyah, period. So it means you never knew you were Tameh, and you never found out you're Tameh. So do you need a kapara? Only Hashem knows you need a kapara. So therefore, Chatas LaHashem, we darshan, LaHashem, a chait that only Hashem knows about, this Seir is Mechaper for that chait. A chait that only Hashem knows about, Hashem is mechaper for that chait. That's what he uses the pasuk for, and therefore he knows that Rosh Chodesh is mechaper ein yediyah loy betchila for loy b'sayf, no yediyah at all. That's how he knows. Fred the Gemara Kasha, guys. The next Gemara is really. This is bazookas. It's unless if the Gemara didn't say that, you pasha couldn't say this. If the Gemara didn't say that, you pasha could not say this. Listen to this. Fred the Gemara. I need the chatas laHashem for Reish Lakish's din. I need the chatas laHashem for Reish Lakish's din. What's Reish Lakish's din? Dam Reish Lakish, manish tana seir shel Reish Chodesh. Why is the seir Reish Chodesh different? Shneimar boy laHashem, Omar Kodesh Baruch Hu, seir zeh. This seir yehei kapara should be a kapara al sheme'arati es hayoreach. That I made the moon smaller. I'm glad no one's talking because you can't say the words. You can't say the words. Do you have an old Gemara you have directly on the side? The new Gemaras, guys, look at this Gimel. On the new Gemaras, the Messiah Shas, look up at you see the Gimel? On the new Gemaras. On the old Gemaras, it's going to be on the side. It says, Zehu soid misoides hakabbalah, ve'ein lahayvinu kimashmoy chas v'shalom, guys, it sounds like you can't even say the words that a Kadosh Baruch Hu needs a kapara. Read the Gemara. Chatas laHashem. This chatas is for the Rabbi Shalom. Kaviyachol that the Rabbi Shalom needs a chatas. So now, what he's referring to is a Gemara in Daf Samich in Chulin. The Gemara, guys, is in Daf Samich in Chulin. The Gemara is going on the pasuk in Bereshis in Bereshis Aleph, Pasuk Dalet. Vayomer Lakim, Yima'oros Berikia Shemayim. There should be Ma'oros, luminaries, in the Shemayim. Lahavdil ben Ayom ben Alayla, V'hoyu La'oisas U'Lamayadim L'Yam Shanim. They'll be used for time. V'hoyu L'Moris Berikia Shemayim L'Hoyer Ala Aretz, and also to go ahead and brighten up the world. Vayihi Chein. Now it says, Vayasel Kim Eshnei HaMa'oros HaGedolim. Hashem made the two Ma'oros HaGedolim. Gedolim means they're both big. As Ma'or HaGadol L'Mshelas Hayom, the Ma'or HaGadol to go ahead and rule over the day. Ves Ma'or HaKatan L'Mshelas Halayla. So what happened? You started off the pasuk. You said what? Two Ma'oros, Gedolim. Now you said Ma'or HaGadol Ma'or HaKatan. So the Gemara tells us that the moon complained. The moon said, how could two kings go be mishamish with the same thing? So Kadosh Baruch Hu tells the moon, go make yourself smaller. And then the moon has a conversation with Hashem, the angel of the moon. We'll pick up in that conversation, Bez Hashem, in a few minutes. But that's what it means over here, that bring me a kapara for me, that I was chaytel Hashem. That's what it says over here. Okay, we can spend a little time on this. Fred the Gemara Kasha. How can you use Chatas Hashem to teach me that the Chet of Rosh Chodesh is to recognize only what? Something that the Rebbeinu Shalom would know, which is Ein Ba Yediyah B'tchila, Ein Ba Yediyah B'soif. You never had a Yediyah, and therefore that's what it teaches me. Fred the Gemara, I need a Reish Lakish's din that Hashem said to bring a Chatas for me, because that I made the moon smaller. And Cain says the Gemara Lemakra al Hashem. If it only was teaching me that it's for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you shouldn't say Chatas LeHashem. You should say Al Hashem. My LeHashem. What's LeHashem? LeChedamaran. Right? Like you said, right? That like we said, that what it's for that only recognizable that Hashem only Hashem would recognize. Maybe it's only coming to teach me that. I guess L'chadamaran means coming to teach me that made the moon smaller. No. So maybe it's only coming to teach me, and not the moon smaller. And Cain name Chatas Hashem. Maila Hashem Shma Min Atarta. You hear two things. If we say Chatas Hashem, it would only teach what that the Chet that Hashem knew about. By telling me Chatas Hashem, it's teaching me both. Okay. So, okay. Fred the Gemara. I don't know what to do. Should it? Okay, let's stop here. Let's stop here just to, Lenny, yeah.
When you say make the moon smaller than the sun?
Yes, smaller than the sun. It was supposed to be both same in size. Ma'oris hagedolim, and now it's ma'or gol ma'or katan. Now, the Rishonim say it means refer to, we know the sun, the reflective powers of the moon would have been stronger. And making smaller, we don't see. It certainly doesn't reflect as much light as the sun. So let's see Taisus over here. Seir zeh kapara alai, guys. Seir zeh kapara alai. Pirish ba'aruch. Seir zeh kapara li Yisrael. This seir is not a chas v'shalom, guys. What's bothering the aruch? To say HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs a kapara, of course not. What's the aruch say? Seir zeh kapara li Yisrael. The alai lekvuas man kapara zu. Yisrael needs a kapara. It's on me to be kaveh that kapara. The kavati b'reish chaydesh, and I was kaveh b'reish chaydesh. The hafez daita shel yareach. In other words, there's a sin. Bnei Yisrael did averis. They need a kapara. The moon is complaining. Says Hashem to the moon, moon, when you renew yourself, you will be mechaper for the averis of Bnei Yisrael. So what it means, Chatas Hashem, the sins of Yisrael, Hashem will decide which moyed is going to go ahead and be what? Be the kapara. He decided, Reish Chodesh, and that's going to go ahead and what? Appease the moon. That's the aruch. Good? That's not Pasha Pshat in the Gemara. Pasha Pshat in the Gemara is Chatas Hashem, not for Yisrael, but for Hashem. And as the Rav Shaya Pick brings down, Chas v'shalom to say this. Fellas, I'm going to share with you something that you know a little about Gemara. The Rif was the first one to abridge the halacha. In other words, he brought down the Gemara, which he felt was halacha. The last thing you're going to find in the Rif, guys, is a Gadata. The last thing you're going to find in the Rif is a Gadata. Because again, that wasn't his purpose. His whole purpose was to condense and bring in the parts of the Gemara that he held was halachically correct. Fellas, this Gemara is so hard. This is so hard to understand. The Rif brings it down to explain it. The Rif brings like an Ein Yaakov to explain it. Now the Gemara is in Daf Samich. You know where the Rif explains it? In the first blot in Shevuous. And you know who has it on the screen? Wow. And here you are. Here is the Rif. You see the word Gemara there? You see the word Gemara there? Gemara Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, 1 second. The lights just went out. Let me put it on.
I thought you were giving us a moon effect.
Very good. Rabbi Yehuda Rav. He's good. Nothing likes it. Rabbi Yehuda Rav. My time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda, fellas? That, you know, T'chsev v'ser izim echad l'chatas l'Hashem, chet shein makeh bo yel Hashem, yesei ezeh mechaper. Agamara. Fred the Gemara v'hami boy leilech Reb Shimon ben Lakish. We need from Shimon ben Lakish is then. Dama manishtanu seir shalosh chodesh shenema bo yel Hashem. Ama Kadosh Baruch Hu sei ezeh ye kapara alai shemati es yereach. Im kein lemakra al Hashem. My Hashem Shema min atarti. You hear both. You hear that the Rosh Chodesh is for an Aveira, Ein Yediyah B'tchila, Ein Yediyah B'soif, and okay, so guys, the Rif is going to explain Ika HaMilsa B'Perek Ele Trefis. This, as I told you, this is Gemara Daf Samech in Chulin. Vayas Elokim Eshtei Moeres HaGedolim Ukasiv Esamora Kotin. All right, Esamora Kotin. So that you know the stira, right? It says Mora Gedolim. That's the stira. Amru Yereach Nei Kadosh Baruch Hu Rebbeinu Shleilam. Ifshel l'shnei malachim l'shtamish b'keser echad. Amalah Kadosh Baruch Hu leichu ma'ich atmecha. What's meich? Go make yourself smaller. Amru l'fanav Rebbeinu Shleilam b'fnei shemati l'fanecha dava hagen amaydes atzmi. In other words, it's true. Ifshel l'shnei malachim l'shtamish. In other words, I told you the truth. So Amalah. So Hashem says, v'limshel b'yom u'b'layla. You know what? You'll be moishel in the day and the night. Guys, the moon is out all the time. The sun is only out part of the day. The moon is out all the time. So Hashem is being Mephias the moon. You'll be out all the time. So what does the moon say? Amalei, my revusa, the sharga b'tihara, my mahanya. A candle in the daylight, why does it help? It doesn't, you're not gaining anything from me because the sun is shining. Amalei, lecha, lech v'yimnu b'cha Yisrael. Lach, and you, v'yimnu b'cha Yisrael, yomim v'shanim. Right? In other words, we keep the lunar calendar. Says the moon to Rabbi Shalom. We know we have to fit the lunar calendar in the solar calendar with a leap year. If we don't do it, we're going to have Pesach in September. Amalei said HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the moon. Tzadikim yikru al shemecha. Your name, they'll call after you. Yaakov HaKotin, Shmuel HaKotin, David HaKotin. So Yereach HaKotin. This is the Rif. He's quoting a Gemara. Lehave meis v'daita. The moon wasn't having this. He didn't have any yeshiva das. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu. Heviya kabar lefanai shemarti es Yereach. Bring the. This is just the Gemara in Chulin. Bring a kapara, a seir on Rosh Chodesh because I made it smaller. V'hainu dam Reish Lakish. Here's the Rif, guys. Manishtana seir shel Rosh Chodesh shenema ba'Lashem. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu says ye kapara alai shimarti yes Yereach. Kloimar says the Rif. Kloimar. Kivin sha'amallah Kadosh Baruch Hu v'lim shel boyim b'layla v'loy nisyash v'daita. Amallah oid loich v'yimin b'chay Yisrael yamim v'shanim v'loy nisyash v'daita. Amallah loich v'chad tzadikim yikru al shemecha v'yoid loy nisyash v'daita. Amallah Kadosh Baruch Hu hineni oisel lecha kovid shemeshiv daitcha. I will give you kovid that you'll have yeshiva das. Tacha shemiyat ticha. That because I made you smaller. Umay ninu. What's that kovid? Sheyiyu Yisrael b'chol Rosh Chodesh makrivin korban lefanai lechaper avoynai sehem to mechaper for your averis. Lefikach for their averis. Lefikach HaMakodesh Baruch Hu heviu kapar lefanai b'Rosh Chodesh, being a kapar in front of me b'Rosh Chodesh lechaper aleichem to mechaper for you. Kidei shetashlimu alai b'korban kapar zeh as hakavod. No, tashlimu alai b'korban. In order to be mashlim with this carbon kapara zeh as kavod shamati lasas liyareach b'shvil shemiatisav, that I made it what, that I made it smaller. So go ahead, please bring this carbon in front, that I made it smaller. So basically, he seems to be saying the same thing as the Aruch. Basically, he's saying the same thing as the Aruch. He's saying Sheyu Yisrael b'chol Rosh Chodesh, every Rosh Chodesh makrivim carbon. They'll bring a carbon lefanai lechaper to mechaper. Avon Sehem, Lefikach HaMakodesh Baruch Hu Yisrael b'chol. There he goes. Lefikach HaMakodesh Baruch Hu Heviu Kapar Lefnei L'Fanai B'Rosh Chodesh L'Chaper Aleichem Kidei Shetashlimu Alai B'Korban Kapara Zeh, that I should be mashlim this kapara as hakavod she'amarti lasos le'yareach, the covet that I said you should do what to the yareach b'shvil shemativ. So I gave him carbon that on his day you're going to get it. V'zehu pirush Heviu Kapara Alai. That's pshat. Bring this kapara in front of me, shemarti. Not that what that I did an avera. Bring it in front of me. That I, meaning that you are bringing for all the other averas. It seems to be that this is the aruch. It seems to be the same thing as the aruch. Now what the pious to the moon is that any day that he could have brought this carbon to go ahead and bring and be mechaper, the day that was chosen is Rosh Chodesh. But the fact, fellas, that the Rif felt the need to go ahead and explain the Agarata to me is mind-boggling. I mean, it gives you an idea of how difficult this Gemara is. I mean, to say the words are almost I think the word we'd say is blasphemous. Correct? It's blasphemous to say this, right? It's blasphemous. Derech Musa, you know what? Derech Musa, it's a big lesson. Derech Musa, it's a big lesson. The Rebbeinu Shalom didn't have to go through all this. Derech Musa, the Rebbeinu Shalom is teaching us a lesson. You know what? I'm not going to say it, but you know what? You know what? In fact, you know what? You can blow it and make it up. You blow somebody, you hurt somebody, you make a mistake, admit it and go on. No, don't procrastinate. Don't say, do it. Okay. I thought it was worthwhile to spend time on that riff to explain this Gemara. It's because very, very. Now you get. I think the Aruch was a one-liner, but going through the riff with the whole Gemara gives it a much more big flavor than the one-liner in the riff in the Taisus. Okay, says the Gemara Vaita. Tana Rabbi Yishmael. Tana Rabbi Yishmael. Hoyel bezeba bezma.
Where was that riff?
That riff is in Shevuous, but the Gemara is in Chulin. But you can understand why he brings it in Shevuous because it parallels Al Gemara over here. Okay. Guys, why are you limited? You're saying it's only mechap of what? For ein ba yediyah lebetchil lebesayf. Why don't we say that the Seresh Chodesh is mechap of every avera? Why are you just limited to Tumas Mikdash Kadashav? Why don't you say that the Seir of Rosh Chodesh is mechap of every avera? It just says that, guys. It says Chatas Lashem lechaper, right? Why do you limit it to? You're limiting it to ein ba yediyah lebetchil lebesayf. Fred the Gemara, be more expansive. Say what it's mechap for everything. Tanav Yishmael Hoyel Bezeh, the Seir of Yom Kippur that's brought outside. Bob Bisman Kavua. Goes in only a certain time on Yom Kippur. V'zeh, and the Seir of Rosh Chodesh is only born on Rosh Chodesh. Ba bizman kavua. Ma zeh, the Seir that's brought outside Yom Kippur, ein mechaper el al tumas mikdash kedashav. Av zeh ein mechaper el al tumas mikdash kedashav. So, in other words, we have in our chart. It's very geschmack. You have the chart up here? I don't know what you have. The chart? Okay, so now, this is going down Rabbi Yehuda. We didn't get to any shittas yet. The ser that's done in Yom Kippur, we know Yediyah B'tchila V'lei B'Soif, and then if you find out that the person, finds out afterwards, it'll be another V'yored. The ser of Yom Kippur was Achas B'Shana, Regalim, right? We don't know yet. We know Rosh Chodesh, Ein Bo Yediyah V'lei B'tchila B'Soif. Just like this is Zman Kavua, it's only one, right? And this is Zman Kavua, just like this is Tumas Kadashav, so do this Tumas Mikdash Kadashav, right? This and this are Tumas Mikdash Kadashav. How do you know Regalim, guys? Look, the Regalim does the same thing. How do you know Regalim? That's what the Gemara wants to know now. Right? Okay. Says the Gemara, Ashken Siri Resh Chadashim, Siri Haragalim in Alon, V'chi Tema, Hainami Kidetan Rabbi Yishmael. You're going to say that what? Like Tan Rabbi Yishmael, this is a man Kavua, and like this is a man Kavua. Ikol Nifrich, Im Resh Chodesh, guys. If you learn out from Regalim from Rosh Chodesh, just like Rosh Chodesh is only Tumas Mikdash Kadashav, so too is Regalim Shekain Tadir. That's because Rosh Chodesh is more common, but Regalim, which is not so common, maybe not. Imi the Yom Kippurim Shekain Meruba Kaparasa. You can't learn out from Yom Kippur because it's Meruba Kaparasa. And I was going to ask the question. So how did you learn out Rosh Chodesh Yom Kippur? Right? The Tema, and if you're going to say I'm in base, Hagamin Rosh Chodesh May Yom Kippur, you did learn out. Like Prechinan, okay. Chasam kapara michtav kasiba. Okay, so look at the chart, fellas. Here's the kasha. We learned out Rosh Chodesh from Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur was a day of Zman Kavua. This was Zman Kavua. Just like this Zman Kavua was Tumas Mikdash Kadashav, so to this. Regalim, I can't learn out from Yom Kippur because it's Muruba Kaparasai. Rosh Chodesh, I can't learn Regalim from Rosh Chodesh because it's Tadir. Okay, it's Tadir. So Fred the Gemara Kasha, so why did we learn out Rosh Chodesh from Yom Kippur? If you're telling me you can't learn out Regalim from Yom Kippur, why did you learn out Rosh Chodesh from Yom Kippur? If you can't learn Regalim from Yom Kippur, why did you learn Rosh Chodesh from Yom Kippur? As I Fred the Gemara. And he says a great teretz, guys. Great teretz. Outside. He says, I don't need to learn from Yom Kippur that Rosh Chodesh is Mechaper. It says over there openly, it's a chatas, that's for a kapara. All I need to learn is that what? A miyut. It's limited. In other words, without Yom Kippur, I would say Rosh Chodesh is Mechaper for everything. Comes lo Yom Kippur and it's Mamayit only for Tumas Mikdash Kadashav. It goes ahead and makes an exclusion. Mashenke B'Regalim, you're learning out the whole kit and caboodle. Even though it says kapara, you're learning out everything. So it's two differently mudim. By Rosh Chodesh from Yom Kippur, I don't need Rosh Chodesh Yom Kippur to teach me that in Mechaper. I know that. I need Yom Kippur to tell me that the kapara is limited to what? It's limited to Tumas Mikdash Kadashav. By Regalim, I have to learn out everything. If you have to learn out everything, you can't because it's kaparas and ruba or because it's tadir. Says Gemara, Hagarmina Rosh Chodesh Midi Yom Kippur V'lei Prachinan Hasam Kapara Michtav Ksiva. By Rosh Chodesh, the kapara is written. Gili Milsa Ba'almahu, and Yom Kippur is just a Gili Milsa that it's right. That's Megala. The only thing it's Mechapa for is Tumas Mikdash Kadashav. Avol Hacha by Regalim Ikla Meima Kula Milsa Like Arminon. You don't learn out anything. You don't know kapara. All you know is from Elam Kidamrav Elegaminan. Okay, Elegaminan. Stop. Good. Okay, so now we're holding our question, fellas. That last chart, Regalim. How do you know Regalim is mechaper for Tumas Mikdash Kadashav according to Rabbi Yehuda? How do you know it's mechaper for Tumas Mikdash Kadashav according to Rabbi Yehuda? El Kidamrav Chama Bar Chanina Seir Viseir. We're going to learn tomorrow's daf, fellas. It says Seir Viseir. It says in the Parsha, there's an extra vav. That vav makes a connection. So just like over there in Shitas Reb Meir, we're going to see that connection. Huadin, we have the word Seir V'Seir over here. Hachanami Bayos Seir V'Seir. V'Ishke Seir Regilim L'Seir Rish Chadashim. And now you can make a hekesh. Masir Rish Chadashim Einim El Chapim El Al Shein Boyidi Alei B'Tchil Alei B'Seif. Afsir Regalim Einim El Chapim El Al Shein Boyidi Alei B'Tchil Alei B'Seif. And we come to two dots. So here's your chart. Gishmak. We know Rosh Chodesh from here. This is Zman Kavua. This is Zman Kavua. This is Tumas Mikdash Kadashav. This is Tumas Mikdash Kadashav, right? And this is Ein Bo Yediyah Lei B'Tchil Lei B'Seif. Regalim is also. What do you learn Regalim for, guys? I can't learn Regalim from Rosh Chodesh. It's Tadir. I can't learn it from Seir of Yom Kippur because it's Kapras and Meruba. You know where I'm going to learn it from? This says Seir. This says Viseir. So I have a vav connecting this to this, just like Rosh Chodesh Ein Bo Yediyah Lei B'Tchil Lei B'Seif. So to regalim ein bo yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'seif. That's what you can learn from there. So that's the shita of what of Rabbi Yehuda. The first shita on the chart, the first line. We're good. We're good. Now iboyelahu. Ki Amar Rabbi Yehuda al she'en bo yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'seif. Hani mili b'chet she'en seif v'liyavada. That's a chet you'll never find out about. Aval chet she'seif liyavadar kimi sheyesh yediyah b'seif dami b'ser nasa b'chutz v'yom kippur mechaper. Idilma afilu chet she'seif liyavada hashtimi a chet she'en makaboy el Hashem karina bey. In other words, you walk, you don't know anything. You're totally lost. However, people they see your tamei and they see you walk into the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, they could tell you you had no yediyah in the beginning, you had no yediyah in the end. Again, what's yediyah mean? That your guys. What does that mean? You were a kid in school, you were a teenage nishba, you never knew the halacha. That's what yediyah means. Now people see you and they say, "Hey, you know what you did?" And they say, and they enlighten him. Now he has the yediyah. Would that be tantamount? Would that be tantamount to this? Ein yediyah b'tchila v'yesh yediyah b'sof, or to this? Would it stay? In other words, which carbon is going to be mechaper for it? This one or this one? Would that be considered a yediyah in the end or not? That's what the Gemara wants to know. With the fact that people can inform you, right? You don't know the halacha, but they're going to inform you of it, right? Says the Gemara. Okay, that's the Gemara shaila. Would the shleir of nasa b'chutz mechaper or not? It's mechaper. The seir of Rosh Chodesh. You don't have yediyah in the beginning, not in the beginning, not the end. In addition, the chet sheseif v'livada, in this chet and the end, you're going to be find out about. Seir regolim, the seir Rosh Chodesh mechaper, different Rabbi Yehuda. So we've been placed to the shaila, guys. In other words, if you don't know the halacha and you walk into the Beis Hamikdash and you're tamei, and someone tells you afterwards, it's the Rosh Chodesh and the regolim carbon that's going to be mechaper. Even though you found out in the end, it doesn't make a difference. Okay. Reb Shimon said, Seir regolim mechapim avaloi seir Rosh Chodesh. Okay, now we're doing now the next shita, the next line. Reb Shimon argues. He agrees over here. He agrees that the seir that's done inside, fellas, right? That Yom Kippur, Panim, Mechaper, and you find out later you're being a carbon of Yori. Guys, you good? Opening line. Next line, he agrees. The seir that's done by Chutz, and Yediyah B'tchila, but you have Yediyah in the end, and Yediyah B'tchila, Yediyah in the end, it's Mechaper for. Regalim, Ein Ba Yediyah Lei B'tchila Lei B'Seif, Ein Ba Yediyah Lei B'tchila B'Seif, he agrees. Where does he disagree? Right over here. The last boxes, guys. I'm going to send this out. You should have it yourselves. You can print it out. You have it, Baruch Hashem. So guys, look. Rosh Chodesh. Ein bo yediyah loy b'tchila loy b'seif. That's Reb Yehuda. Says Reb Shimon, you know what it's mechapa for? Tahar, a tamadik person, shachal es hatamei, that eats tuma. Tahar, shachal es hatamei. Why does he disagree? Why does he disagree by Rosh Chodesh? Good. That's what I'm trying to figure out over here. What this over here? Why does he disagree? Good. So we're set up. Amra Baishia, Amra Balaz, Amra Baishia. My time of the Rav Shimon. Amakra. Okay, we're gonna have two psukim. And here they are. Okay. Background. It's the Yom HaShmini. And there are three seirim. One seir was for the Miluyim, that special day. It's Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's the Shmoneh Miluyim. The next one was the seir of Nachshain, who was the opening nasi. And since Rosh Chodesh, it was the seir of Rosh Chodesh. So two of the seirim were unique. They're brought only that day. One of them was Rosh Chodesh. That's always going to be brought. Good. That day, Aaron and his sons were oining him. because Nadav Avihu died that day. That was, they brought Ezra, they died that day. Moshe Rabbeinu said, especially, you could eat the karbonis that day. They ate the miluyim, they ate the nachshain, they burnt the Rosh Chodesh. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, Pasuk Yud Zayin, Madua lo yachaltem es hachatas b'makom hakodesh. Why did you not eat the chatas b'makom kodesh? Ki kodesh kadashim he. V'oisa nasan lachem lases es avoda eda. And it was given for you to go ahead and forgive the avera of the eda. L'chapra aleim l'fnei Hashem. So they bring the chatas, you eat it, and they get a kapara. So why didn't you go ahead, what? And eat it? Why didn't you do it? So the answer to this question, fellas, is the heter v'oinanin was only on that special carbon, but the carbon that was brought every single Rosh Chodesh, they didn't have a heter for. That's what Aaron told Moshe. It says Moshe agreed. Right, Moshe, okay? But it said over there that you're going to say. Why does it say over there? It says that it's oven Eda. Now, there's another pasuk. There's another pasuk which I'm going to try to bring up. Sometimes you have to. V'hoya al meitzach Aaron v'nosin Aaron es oven hakadashim, and the tzitz Aaron will wear on his forehead, and it will forgive the oven of kachim. It says oven over here. It says oven over here. We have a gzeir shava, guys. We have a gzeir shava between Rosh Chodesh carbon of oven and what and the tzitz, guys. That I'm going to get rid of the chart. So you got it. The oven is by the tzitz, and the oven by the seir of Rosh Chodesh. Good. And our aim is to figure out why Rav Shimon holds that the seir of Rosh Chodesh is only mechaper for tosh oichles atamei, and not like Rav Yehuda learned on Eino Yediyah lebetchila v'lebesayf. Okay, so that's what we're trying to figure out. Now, the tzitz was meratza, fellas. If you brought a carbon that the dam became tamei, the emurim became tamei, that's the part that goes to Hashem, or the basa became tamei, it's meratza for that. If the person was tamei, it's not meratza. It's not meratza means make accepting. It doesn't make it accepted to bring a carbon. It makes the carbon accepted, that you don't have to bring another one, but it will not go ahead and, okay, says the Gemara. Amar Rav Elazar, Amar Rav Aisha, my time of Rav Shimon, that again, that the Rosh Chodesh carbon is for what? Tamish Shocheles, Torah Shocheles Atanei. Amar Kra, V'oisa Nasan Lechem Lases is Oven Ho'eda. It was given to you for forgiveness. That's speaking of the Seir Rosh Chodesh. V'hai Kra b'Seir Rosh Chodesh Kesiv. V'yolef Oven meets tzitz. And we learn out of Gzeir Shava, oven from the tzitz. Nerma kan avain. It says by Rosh Chodesh avain. V'nerma lahalam by the tzitz avain. Ma lahalam by the tzitz tuma basar. It's speaking where the bas is tamei. Afkan, so to Rosh Chodesh is speaking where the kapara is what? Tumas basar. So guys, what is the mechapa for? A tahar dika person that eats tamei dika meat, like the oven. The tzitz is meratza for tamei dika meat. So Memela, the Rosh Chodesh, where it says oven, is mechaper for tamei dika meat, a tar person that eats tamei dika meat. As I state, you'll ask a malahala and oilin afkan oilin. You'll say that what? Just like over there, by the tzitz, the carbon mat works, meaning the carbon is okay. So to afkan the kapar say Rosh Chodesh, if it became it's speaking with tumas basar. You'd say that what? So smala halan by its tzitz is not it ain't a mechaper al shum chet elam ratza ala oilin afkan ain't say mechaper al torah shochlas atame elam ratza as oilin. In other words, you're telling me that what the tzitz does, it makes the carbon accepted. It doesn't afford kapara. So maybe what the tzitz does is makes the seir of Rosh Chodesh, if it's brought betuma, okay. but not that it's mechapa for the person that eats the food. One more time. The tzitz is miratza. The tzitz is miratza, that the carbon is accepted if the bus is tameh or the emurim is tameh or the dam is tameh, that you're not going to get carbon. So if you're making oven, maybe if you bring the seir of Reish Chodesh and the meat is tameh of the seir of Reish Chodesh, so you don't have to bring another one. But how do you know that a tar person that eats it's mechapa for him? As I read the Gemara. In other words, why don't you say the following? Just like the tzitz is mechapa, that what malahalam by the tzitz is mechaper on oilin. Afkan, by let's say by the seir that you brought on Rosh Chodesh, that's tamei, is oilin, just like the tzitz, but not what? But not that the person who eats it would be what? Would be off the hook. It says the Gemara, oven ha'eda ksiv. It says by the seir of Rosh Chodesh, it says it's mechaper for oven ha'eda. That means a person, not a carbon. And if you learn from the tzitz, right? That's oven shel tumas basav, lo shel tumas haguf. Okay. If you look at the Gezer Shava carefully, it says over here, what are you doing this? For Isa, Moshe tells Aaron, Nasan Lachem, the seir was given to you, Law says to forgive as Avana Eda. So what do you want to say? That the carbon that sits, it's going to not be help the person who ate kachim, but that was the kachim was tameh and he was tahar. You're going to tell me it's not mechapa for him? The Gufa Moshe Rabbeinu says the seir is what? Is oven or eda. It's for a person. It's not to make a carbon accepted. So therefore, I'll learn out from the tzitz. Just like the tzitz goes ahead and it's speaking about the tzitz is meratza, that the tzitz goes ahead and it makes the basa. It's speaking about basa that's tamei. So too, this is speaking of basa that's tamei, and it's mechapa for that. And you can't tell me it makes the carbon accepted because it says avana eda, and eda is a person. Eda is a person. Memela we know that Rosh Chodesh, the seir Rosh Chodesh, is mechapet for a person. That what? That's similar to the tzitz, where the meat was tamei and he was tahar and he ate it. It's mechapet for that. That's what the Gemara says. Let's just finish up. Weiter. You learn out we have a relationship now between Rosh Chodesh and the tzitz. Nechape the Rosh Chodesh adidei v'adid tzitz. Let Rosh Chodesh be mechape for both. In other words, it'll not only be mechape for a tahar person that ate food was tamei. It'll make any carbon that was brought b'tumah, that if the basa was tamei, as long as the person wasn't tamei, if the basa was tamei, it would be okay. And what would the difference be? Nafkamina leheched nishbarat tzitz.
Please, just to understand something. Let me just finish one thing, and just 1 second, Hesh. We just said before we began to share. Let's say the chutz and the panimi, they should be mechapa for each other, and we had a limit achad with only one carbon and only once a year. Right? We had, in other words, we had to take out, since you made a hekesh between the chutz and the panimi, we had to take off the chart that each one could go ahead and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Fred the Gemara now. Why don't we say, you're telling me, you've established that from the tzitz, that the seir of Rosh Chodesh is mechape for a person that eats tamei dika kachim. Why don't you say, in addition to that, the tzitz will be mechape, the Rosh Chodesh carbon will be mechape for any carbon that the meat was tamei, or the dam was tamei, or the emurim was tamei. My nafkamina, you don't need that. You have the tzitz. Let's say the tzitz is broken. Let's say it's not on Aaron's metzach. He's not wearing it, but that you see mash from the Gemara over here, it's not on the metzach, or else would get teretz, it's off his head. You don't have to say it's broken. They could have said he's not wearing it. In other words, they asked the kasha, does it work it off? The mash over here does work off. So in other words, if it's broken, you'd still be afforded the carbon would work because of of Rosh Chodesh. Yeah, okay, Hesh, I'm sorry. I just one nakuda I'm just not getting the where we talk about the seir Rosh Chodesh in the context of where the pasuk is. It's talking about Aaron, where Aaron himself was tamei, where they had that thing about what.
No, Moshe, they were not tamei, Hesh. They were oinim. They weren't tamei.
Right. No, but
Hesh, they weren't tamei. They had other people, like Safin and Mishal, they went in and schlepped it out. They were not tamei. They were tar when they did the avodah. So now, Moshe is, inferencing from Moshe's reaction, why in the world did you not eat the seir? After all, you should bring it and eat it. That's what you should be doing every single month. So we see what's the purpose of the seir v'shchaydesh, to be a kapara, right? So now, what kapara is that? We're learning out from the tzitz. This is according to Rav Shimon. It's similar to the tzitz. Just like the tzitz is mechape for food that's brought b'tumah, so too it's mechape for food that you ate, that the food was tamei. You good? Guys, you good? Okay, so that's Rav Shimon's oven. Now we have a kasha. So you're telling me there's a relationship. Let's say the tzitz breaks. So 1 second, I have a relationship. Let the seir do two things. One, the seir will be mechap for a person who eats what, according to Rav Shimon, person who eats kachim, and the kachim is tamei and he's tahar. And sveitens, a carbon that was bought with tumah, it'll be maratza, it'll make it acceptable. As I read the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Michni, Migmar Gemiri Madadi, Nachaped Rosh Chodesh Adidei Bad Tzitz, Nafkamino Lahechad and Nishbar Tzitz, Amakro Ovain Echad Hu Noisei Vein Noisei Beis Avoin Nois. Okay, in other words, it can only do one. Oven Aida, it can only do one thing. It can't do two things. Fred Gemara V'Nachaped Tzitz Adidei Bad Rosh Chodesh. The same question the other way, the inverse. Guys, same question at the beginning of the share. So let the tzitz be maratza on a carbon that's brought b'tumah, if the bus is tamei, and a person that's tahar and eats things tamei, let the tzitz, and nafkamina will be between Rosh Chodesh. In other words, if guys, according to Rav Shimon, look at me. If I'm tahar and I eat kachim dika meat that's tamei on Rosh Chodesh, and let's say I eat it on not on Rosh Chodesh, I eat it on Gimel or Dalid, I got to wait till next Rosh Chodesh to do it. Maybe the tzitz could take care of that. Says the Gemara, "V'nechapet tzitz adidei v'ad Rosh Chodesh nafkamina the tumah the iri ben zelazev amakra oisa nas." It says the pasuk says that what? V'oisa nasan lechem laseis oisa dafka the carbon of Rosh Chodesh noisa avon vein acheres noisa avon. Therefore, Rav Ashi Amar ksiv hacha avon ha'eda v'loy kachim the hay is a miyut. V'hasam ksiv avon hakachim kidashim v'loyeda. So in other words, over here, you want to know why? I'll give you another reason why the Rosh Chodesh is only on a person and not on karbanis, and I'll give you a reason why the tzitz is only karbanis, not on a person. What does it say over here? It says avon ha'eda, eda meaning people, v'loy kachim. So it can't be go ahead. The Rosh Chodesh can't be make a carbon acceptable, which is kachim. V'hasam ksiv, and it says by the tzitz avon hakachim, right? Kachim v'loyeda, kachim, but not to go ahead and be mechaper for a person. Okay, this is a good place to stop. Oof.